Hey, thanks for dropping by and checking out this message. These lessons come from our Sunday gatherings at Victory Christian Church in Franklin, Indiana. Our 5th through 8th graders meet at 9 or 10:30 a.m. and our high schoolers meet from 6 to 8 p.m. If you find that this content brings value to your life, then please consider subscribing and hitting that bell so that you can be notified when we upload our next message. Our hope is that this video brings more clarity into your life as to who God is and what He wants for you in light of who Jesus is and what He's done for you. Enjoy and have a great day.
All right, so it's a new year. It is 2020. It is the clean slate. How many of you enjoy clean slates? It's like the opportunity to be able to start fresh. If you were running on fumes by the end of last semester, you're like, this is a breath of fresh air because you get to start fresh and your GPA gets to start over for the semester. And if you're anything like me, then what was that? Well, okay, it doesn't start over since high school, but your grades, you haven't failed any tests yet. So there's that. That's what I meant. You know what I mean. Don't criticize me. Don't nitpick. But so I enjoy a fresh start because I like to make resolutions, and not that I always keep them, but I like to strive for a goal. And if anybody has anything in common, I think it's the idea that we all like to strive for something. We don't like to just sit around and wait for life to happen to us. We strive for something. Even if your hobby is like video games or something, you strive to get that dub in Fortnite again and again, even though it's unreachable and it makes me angry because I can never win unless I'm partnered with somebody really good, and then I just kind of watch their back and then I, ride their tail to the finish line. But anyway, we all strive for a goal that we want to accomplish. We all want to strive for something. And there's two types of people in the world. There's those who love running and those who hate it. How many of you are those who love running? You're track or cross country. You like to be in the minority and you like to run. And how many of you are like, why would anybody do that with your free time, right? So there's two types of people, those who love it and those who hate it. And those who love it, I'm guessing it's because you're not good at anything else. No, just kidding. Just kidding. I bet it's because, that sounded way harsher than I meant. I enjoy a good run now and then when I'm in shape. The hard part is just getting into shape to where I can enjoy the run. But there's something simplistic about running, right? There's something simplistic about you run. There's no ball you have to dribble. Like how many of you've ever tried to watch a football game and there's 3,000 rules and maybe 10 of them? Like there's no dribbling in football. You hit people, and if the ball goes loose, you dive for it. And there's a lot of other complicated rules that go with that. And over years of watching football with my family and with friends and many Super Bowls, because let's be honest, it's the only football I watch. And I've picked up on several rules, and I feel like I understand the game pretty well. In fact, when Chelsea and I are watching football, I can explain it to her for 90% of the time. But with running, it's simple. All you do, you just get yourself together. It didn't say it's easy, but the concept is simple. It's sometimes you like to just beat your own time. Sometimes you like the idea of not having to depend on a teammate in order to win. You can just work really hard and you can beat other people because you can outlast them. There's something simplistic about running that is beautiful and that is just refreshing. That you want to run. But all of us have been in a race before, right? Whether it's you're running competitively now, or you've been racing your sibling to the shotgun because you don't want to sit in the back seat, or maybe you ran track in 3rd grade and you did a 50-yard dash. How many of you guys had track and field day in elementary school and you got to run? Yeah, that was my favorite day of the year because it meant it was almost summer. But you've run a race at some point in time. And here's the thing, it's not hard to understand. You have one goal, and the goal is to beat all the other people, right? The goal in running the race is to beat all the other people. And it's simple that way. There's nothing else to it. You either beat everybody else or you don't. And there's something awesome about, there's something beautiful and simple about that. But what if it could be that easy winning with your parents? How many of you, like, you wish that you just had one thing you had to do, but you don't. You got to do your chores. You got to do your homework. You got to make sure that you don't, sleep through your alarm. Or, actually something fun I'm going to do with my kids is if they ever sleep through their alarm, I'm going to train them early. I'm going to take marbles out of the freezer and put it in the bed so it rolls into them and they have to jump out of the bed. It's going to be awesome. I'm going to be a great parent. So you got tons of stuff that you got to keep in mind when it comes to winning with your parents. And for some of us, it's like, the standard's pretty low. They don't think very highly of us, so it's pretty easy to win with our parents. For some of us, it's like our parents expect the world out of us and to do it with a smile on our face too. So the standard's pretty high. For some of us, it's just winning is difficult. It's hard to tell whether or not you're winning with your parents. The same is true when it comes to your friends, right? Sometimes if your friend does something nice for you, you feel like you got to do something nice back. Like even the scale a little bit. Like, if you've ever seen The Office when Andy and Dwight are trying to beat each other and being nice so that people owe them, right? Like sometimes with your friends it's not like that, but sometimes there's relational things that happen that you don't intend to happen. Sometimes there's relational things that happen because you're just spiteful, and sometimes there's just, you don't know where the disconnect is, but winning with your friends is hit or miss. Sometimes you're getting along great with your friends, and sometimes you're not getting along great with your friends. The difference between guys and girls is usually guys will beat each other up and then be best friends 5 minutes later and get it out of their system and then laugh about it the next day. Girls will remember that thing you said in second grade at first recess, and it's like you're juniors in high school and you won't forget it. And sometimes guys can be that way too. Sometimes it's just really difficult to understand when you're winning with your friend group and when you're not. And so sometimes, it can be difficult to know and gauge where you're at if you're winning the game when it comes to your friends. And what would it look like if you knew the standard for winning when it came to your faith? Because many of us, we wish it were as simple as running. The Bible uses illustrations like run the race marked out for you. Run with perseverance the race that God has for your life, and you wish it was just that simple. You just follow Jesus, and it's you just chase Jesus, and it's that easy. But it seems like the chasing after Jesus is like chasing after the wind. You can't ever grab it. You can't ever tell if you've made it. You can't ever tell if you're on the right track. You might feel right, but then something happens and it changes your perspective, and it makes you question things. And it's difficult to tell if you're winning when it comes to God. What does winning with God look like? It's the ultimate question. Sometimes we think it's doing more right than we do wrong. For some of us, maybe it's just going to church more. For some of us, maybe it's just stop being angry as much, or keep it inside, control yourself. Maybe it's learning to be more patient. Maybe it's to stop that bad habit that is wrong or bad for you or is hurting other people and you just know you shouldn't do it. Maybe it's leaving some friends that are having a toxic influence on you. Maybe it's to volunteer more. Maybe it's just to read your Bible and pray more. But we all have things that we kind of use in our minds to gauge whether or not we're winning when it comes to our faith and when it comes to God. And many of us work ourselves tired just chasing after the things that we think are going to get us there. And somehow it's still so fleeting. It's hard to tell if we're chasing the right things. And so I'm super pumped for this series because as we start a new year fresh, and we try to just be the encouragement to each other in this journey called faith, where we try to build one another up. We're going to talk about priorities. We're going to talk about, practically speaking, what does it look like to have a faith that is chasing after God but doesn't leave you exhausted and wondering if you're on his good side, if you're on his naughty list or his nice list. And sometimes we view God like we view Santa Claus. The season we just ended is we wonder, was I good or bad this year? Am I doing okay? Am I not? And sometimes if we gauge it just based on our feelings in the moment, it can be very misguided, for good or bad. So what are we chasing after? It's important to recognize what it is we're doing and how we gauge whether or not we're chasing the right things when it comes to God, when it comes to our faith, when it comes to our friendships, when it comes to our parents, when it comes to all the things we've just talked about. How do you know if you're on the right track? Because it's not as simple as just go when the gun goes off and cross the finish line as that, and that's that. It's a little more complicated than that. It's a little more like football. There's a lot of things you got to remember, a lot of things you got to understand if you're going to be doing it right. And sometimes we feel like we're never going to get there. But fear not. We're going to talk about a lot of things that I think in this series is going to be super beneficial. It's going to help you when it comes to your faith journey. It's going to help you when it comes to figuring out if you're chasing after the things that God designed for you to chase after. And in order to kind of to start this first week off, I want to look at a very practical example. It's not one that we talk about a whole lot in church. If you've been in church for a long time, you've probably heard this story before, but it's one of the lesser popular ones. And it's a story that's documented by Luke. Luke was a doctor in the first century, and he went around and he made it his duty to interview the people who interacted with Jesus during his lifetime. So he was writing this down just years after Jesus rose from the dead, and he's going around, he's been converted to Christianity. In fact, he follows Paul on some of his missionary journeys, and so he documents some of the early church in the book of Acts as well. But he writes and specifically documents the life of Jesus in the Gospel of Luke. And in this story, he tells a story about two sisters, Mary and Martha. Now, how many of you just had a bunch of family over, or you went to go see family over the holidays, and how many of you, your mom's like freaking out about cleaning up the house and making sure it looks presentable, and how many of you, your job is to go clean the bathroom? And if you're honest with yourself, you just kind of spray, wipe, and call it done, right? I still do that. And so Chelsea doesn't make me do it anymore, because she has better standards. But that's beside the point. You know that your mom and your dad, maybe they just need to try to get the house looking well and looking presentable because you want to make a good impression, you want to be hospitable, you want your guests to feel comfortable in the house. Whenever company was coming to my parents' house when I was growing up, it was always a huge deal. We wanted to make sure everything was spick and span. In the first century, at the time of Jesus, in the writing of this gospel, this was like times 10. Like, honor and shame was on your social standing with society was on the line based on how hospitable you can be. There's a lot writing on this. And as far as we can see, Mary and Martha didn't have any maids. They didn't have any house help. It was just up to them, these two sisters. And Jesus comes to their house. And this is where we pick up the story in Luke chapter 10. As Jesus and the disciples continued on their way to Jerusalem, they came to a certain village where a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. Her sister Mary sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he taught, but Martha was distracted by the big dinner she was preparing. See, she was apparently doing all the work. It's like if you had company coming, you were getting everything ready, and you were doing your job and your chores, but then you looked over to your siblings and they were just sitting there. And how many of you that would make you mad? You'd be going to your parents, but hey, make them do it. I'm doing all the work, right? Well, if we keep reading, that's exactly what Martha does. And in fact, this is what happens in the next verse. She came to Jesus and said, Lord, doesn't it seem unfair to you that my sister just sits here while I do all the work? Tell her to come and to help me. Now, it would not have been out of line for Jesus to be like, you know what? You're right. Mary, what are you doing here? You should be helping your sister. I'm talking to the men. In this day and age, men were viewed in higher regard than women. In fact, Christianity is the first religion, the first way of thinking that actually elevates women to the same status quo as men. And so, if you ever hear somebody say that, religion has oppressed women or used religious texts to oppress women, that's not the story of Jesus. But Jesus doesn't respond the way that probably most people would have in this day and age. In fact, if we read the next verse, it says, but the Lord said to her, my dear Martha. Notice, he's not mad at her. He's not scolding her. He's just saying, hey, my dear Martha, you are worried and upset over all these details. There's only one thing worth being concerned about. Mary has discovered it, and it will not be taken away from her. See, many of us, when it comes to our faith, when it comes to living for Jesus or following Jesus or chasing after the things that we think God desires for us, many of us, myself included, get caught up in the same mindset as Martha. We try to do all the right things. We try to do the things that we're taught in church, the things that we think our parents want us to do. We try to do the things that we think are going to get us in a good standing with God so that, maybe we can outweigh the mistakes we've made by just being good enough. The fact of the matter is none of us can ever be good enough. And we can never work our way into his favor. But notice Jesus wasn't saying what Martha was doing was unimportant, right? Obviously, they needed to eat. If Jesus had traveled all that way on his way to Jerusalem and goes into somebody's house and they don't eat, then it's not really rest. They're not really, it defeats the purpose. So Martha wasn't doing anything wrong, but her priorities were slightly misplaced. See, the difference was that Martha was trying to do all these things for Jesus. And you and I are the same way. We try to do all these things for Jesus. And in fact, just to be really transparent with you, my full-time job of being a youth pastor, I do a lot of things for Jesus. My whole job, my whole life is centered around doing things for Jesus. And oftentimes I feel like God's just knocking at the door of my heart and saying, Zach, I want you to just stop for a second doing things for me. Not because they're not very important, because they are. But I want you to stop doing things for me. Stop for a minute so that you can do things with me. Because too often in my own life, and I know in all of our lives, we struggle with the temptation of just trying to outperform ourselves and trying to beat our last time in the race of our faith. And we're trying to just do all these things for Jesus when all along he just wants us to do things with Jesus. And we could be doing the very same things we're doing now. But it's about bringing God in the conversation. And Jesus is looking at Mary and he's saying, she's with me in this moment. She's listening to what I have to say. She's opened up her life. She has set aside her time and prioritized the little time that I have here to be with her. We'll have meals later. The work is good. We still need to do those things. But if you're not doing them with me, then you're kind of missing the point. And when it comes to our faith, many of us view our faith as something that we're chasing, something that we're trying to just achieve. We're trying to perform our way into God's liking. But that's not how it works. We're not trying to do things for Jesus. We're trying to do them with Jesus. And chasing Jesus means not chasing performance. Now, the good news in that is that when you and I are tired and exhausted from running the race of our faith and getting nowhere, God is not disappointed in us. He does not hate us. He is not looking at us with less favor because our fervor for him is lacking. He is not looking at us with disdain because we could be doing better than we're currently doing. He looks at us out of love. And just like any good friendship, if you have a good relationship with someone who's either a mentor to you or a coach or whatever, a parent maybe, you know that you feel so much more safe and secure when the love for you from that person is unconditional. When you're having an off day and your friends aren't mad at you, but they come with understanding and they give you grace. You need that and you feel that burden released from you when that happens. And that's the same way it is with God. He looks at you with grace and he looks at you with love, and not out of some kind of performance you put on for his name, not because you came to church all 4 times this month, not because of anything like that, but because you chose in the midst of your everyday life to live with him and not just for him. His love for you is not based on how well you perform or fail to perform. His love for us is based on his decision to love us in spite of our performance. And thank God for that, because if that wasn't the case, let me tell you, I would not be in ministry for very long. You would not stick to your faith very long. In fact, you would graduate from high school and you'd probably walk away at the earliest convenience because you're tired of just running in circles and exhausting yourself and not getting anywhere, just trying to live for Jesus. His love for us is there, not on the basis of our performance, but on the basis of his performance on that cross for us. And that is the beautiful gift that is following Jesus. So, it doesn't mean that we're never going to be exhausted. It doesn't mean we're never going to be stressed. It doesn't mean we're never going to struggle with things or have anxiety. But what it does mean is that God's love for us does not change. It does not falter at the first sign of our mistakes. So this week I want to encourage you to change what you chase. Change what you chase. Stop chasing the game. Stop chasing the looking good by doing all the right things. Stop chasing an image. Stop chasing a brand. Stop chasing your performance. Change what you chase. Stop chasing perfection. Stop chasing religion. Stop chasing sky-high expectations. Goals are good, but they're not what sets you free. And when you achieve them, sure, it feels great, but it does not bring ultimate satisfaction or fulfillment. Instead, I want you to simply try and just chase Jesus. And that's the whole point of this whole series. That's the whole point of the semester. That's the whole point of meeting together, is that when we have groups, when we have gatherings, when we are living life and you're passing each other in the hallway at schools, your goal is just to chase Jesus together. That you don't look down on each other because of mistakes you've made, because God doesn't. And sometimes we personify God the way that people react to us when we make mistakes. And I wish that weren't the case, because as humans, we're imperfect and we fail one another. And that's not a very good representation of who God is. But the goal is that we chase Jesus together, because he wants to be close now. He doesn't want you to have to get your act together before you try to trust him. He doesn't want you to try to clean up yourself. If you think that's the case, just read Luke 15. Go home and read 5 chapters after this passage, Luke 15, and you'll read all about how that's not how God operates. He wants to be close to us now, so don't try to chase a performance of following God. Just chase God himself. I'm going to pray, and then we're going to dismiss it to our small groups for about 10 or 15 minutes, and then we got something really exciting tonight. All right, tonight at the end of group time, at about 7:55, 7:58-ish, group leaders, we can start heading down to the worship center, because Nick is going to get baptized tonight. So we're gonna go down there, we're gonna dunk him in the water, and it's gonna be a good night. That's how we're gonna close our first gathering. So thank you guys for being here. I hope you come back for the rest of the series. It's gonna be really good. I think it really is just awesome to just, no matter what we're talking about, but to just talk through this stuff together. So let me pray, and you'll go to your small groups for a little bit, and then we'll head down to the baptism.
Hey, hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up and make sure you're subscribed so you're notified when we upload future videos. Have a great day.